Thank you. Always, I knew I'd forget. Thank you, Jesus. What an introduction, and thank you to you all as well for being here for my presentation. It's really wonderful to spend this time with you. As Jesus mentioned, my name is Matt Jones, and I'm a career consultant at the University of Liverpool. And I'll be speaking to you today about my and my colleagues' work in embedding virtual reality into academic assessment in politics. Bear with. Okay. Perfect. So I thought it would be great to start with a little bit about my role within the university. So when you think of careers and employability, you might think of a careers advisor who works one-to-one with students. You might think of resumes, you might think of job interviews, and in some ways that is absolutely true. But the way that University of Liverpool and my own career has developed that role is that I'm much more connected to teaching, learning, and assessment. So, as part of career education at the University of Liverpool, it's embedded into the student journey. We aim to make employability an unmissable part of the student experience. So, where in previous years I may have run extracurricular sessions for students, now I'm embedded within the curriculum, and the join between academic and professional education. Hopefully, the seam will be minimised. Students shouldn't be able to see where their academic content finishes and their professional content begins with the collaboration that I have. So I work very closely with academic colleagues to develop their programs, their modules, their assessments, to support our students across the institution. So I'm aligned with the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, and I'll be talking about the politics department today, but that's one of many departments that I look after at University of Liverpool. So, as I mentioned, it's quite different to the ordinary model that you might think about in careers and employability. So, where ordinarily a qualified career guidance practitioner might give one-to-one support to a student, we hire a team of students to act as peer-to-peer coaches. So we train them in career education, information, advice, and guidance. So they see our students, they work with our students, and I'm available then to work with academic colleagues to deliver embedded employability at scale. So these three elements come together. My part, embedded employability, experience like events and activities, big events that take place on campus, and the one-to-one support from our career studio. And students really are in the centre of all the work that we do at University of Liverpool. So as I mentioned, I work with academics across humanities and social sciences, and one of my departments is politics. So I work with Dr. Andrew Routledge on his first year skills and methods module. Now, one of the reasons why I work with Andy and chose this module is because it captures every single politics student in their first year. So it ensures they get a great foundation in career education from the moment they start their programme with us. So the module itself, as I mentioned, captures 300 students and equips students with the skills and the methods that they need to succeed in studying politics in this current day and age. I've included a list of skills on the screen there that the module aims to equip students to develop, from critical thinking, research, academic writing, and so on. And as you can see, public speaking is the second skill there. From my work with Andrew, Dr. Rutledge, it was clear that for a 12-week module, it's very difficult to support students to develop practically all of the skills that we mention here. So in terms of public speaking training previously, students perhaps had an opportunity to speak in a lecture, or there was an exercise where Andy would throw out a beach ball, and whoever caught the beach ball would speak, throw the beach ball again. So it was students got some experience of public speaking, but it certainly wasn't at scale. So I identified an opportunity to work with Andy where I thought I could add value to the module and to collaborate to work together to deliver this successfully. So you can see here, it says 10% practical. That is the assessment that I'll be talking about today. It's worth 10% on a pass-fail basis, but we'll get into the detail a little bit shortly. So I'd like you to think for a moment of your own public speaking in the past, currently, how you felt when you stood in front of an audience, however small or however large, for the first time, and perhaps the feelings that you felt: excitement, trepidation, nerves, anxiety, all of these things. So we know that public speaking is an intimidating experience for many people, including students. But we also recognise from an employability perspective that it's a widely recognised as one of the foundational skills required for the future of work, particularly politics students who will work for local and national government. They might work for lobbying groups. They might have to articulate policy to lay people who don't have the same technical knowledge as them or the group that they're representing. So we've identified a gap here where anecdotally, we see that students do struggle. And actually, it's come out in some of the presentations over the past 2 days that my students and Andy's students are not the only students that struggle with public speaking and contributing to seminars and lectures and asking questions. One of the talks yesterday was a great talk. The findings found that students would rather speak to ChatGPT rather than their teacher for fear of judgment. It's a safe environment, okay? So related to that, we wanted to support students to develop this public speaking skill at scale. And the most recent research here is the one from Handshake. You may have come across Handshake before, but they undertook some research into European graduates, and only 46% of European graduates felt confident in their ability to communicate effectively in person. Less than half. And less than a third possessed the confidence to communicate feedback to their peers. So we now strain into teamwork and collaboration, because if you're working as a team and you have feedback that you want to share because you can foresee a problem in what you're working on, but the graduates don't feel able to confidently articulate their thoughts and their concerns, that's a problem. That's a problem for these students. So with that in mind, we, as an institution, we had access to some licenses for some software, the VR software from an organisation called Body Swaps. Now, Body Swaps is one of the leading VR soft-skilled training providers in the UK, and they have a market globally as well. And we had existing licenses in the career service where students could book a one-to-one experience, pop on a virtual reality headset, and practice their public speaking. So the team that manages that function, I went to them and I said, friends, and they knew I was going to ask for a favour, they knew. And I said, what you do already with one-to-one for students is incredible. Can we scale that up? So they said, well, to how many? 10 or 20? No, I'm talking 300 politics students in one semester. So they were nervous looking, but they went away and they figured it out. And we found a way of delivering this to scale. So in terms of what it looked like and why we chose this approach, we utilized VR technology to create an immersive learning experience in a simulated environment that students could felt replicated the kind of environments they might want to speak publicly in. It situated learners in context-rich scenarios, mirroring real-world environments. So they were in professional environments, but in the virtual reality space. So therefore, we're able to practice in that context-rich environment. They received personalized AI-driven feedback, which acted as scaffolding for their learning journey. This was something that Dr. Rutledge did not have workload for as an academic in terms of the marking and the marking that he was doing the feedback. He couldn't give personalized feedback on public speaking amongst all the other skills that I mentioned earlier within the 12-week module. So students were able to get some AI-driven feedback based on their performance in terms of their pitch, tone, pace, and gave them things to think about, areas to focus on to develop. Learners undertook those practical tasks, they got the feedback, they engaged in independent reflection, they conceptualized the improvements they wanted to make, and then applied that learning to the next activity. So having delivered and facilitated this assessment, being in the room, seeing and hearing the students from when they put their headset on to when they were leaving, even I could hear the difference in confidence and their ability just in a 45 to a 1 hour period. So it was great. And we know that VR reduces performance anxiety because it's a low stakes, risk-free environment. It's a sandbox. It's an area where students can play and test and get feedback and grow and develop, which would be slightly different if it was to a real audience straight away. So here are some examples of our students who were completing the activity. So the 300 students were split into 36 seminar groups, each containing a maximum of 9 students per group. So we worked with timetabling to ensure there was sufficient space where we could space out the students in a physical environment. They used a virtual reality headset. So we had 10 headsets to use, which is why we elected 9 students and 1 just in case. And we provided students with noise cancelling headphones off the back of students' feedback that they could hear other students speaking a little bit in the background. So we provided better noise cancelling headphones, but we also expressed that actually a little bit of noise in the background is not a bad thing. Because if we think about the environments that we thought about earlier, our public speaking that we all did, people are talking, people are drinking and clinking glasses and using knives and forks. So rarely is there an environment where there's no noise at all. So we reframed that as well as supporting students with some noise cancelling headphones. And here are some examples of the activities that students go through. So we help students to identify what kind of speaker that they are, to sort of identify who they are and develop their self-concept as a speaker. So we're not trying to duplicate each student to be the same, but actually helping the student to find their own authentic voice and how they articulate. Whether you're an extrovert or introvert, there's a way that you can public speak with confidence in your own way, which is really important for me to mention. As I mentioned, the AI-driven feedback, so students could see voice graphs and pitch graphs where they were able to see visually whether they had high pitch or low pitch in their voice, and they were given feedback to work on that. And the activities that they worked on gave them questions that they did not need any subject knowledge for. So it was questions like, what is the best holiday that you've ever been on? What's the worst food that you ever ate? What's better, cats or dogs? I mean, I would not like to answer that question, but students answered that with, and to hear their answers in real life was great and very interesting as well. And the activity itself built from this solo activity with one-to-one, as you can see on the screen, and then culminated in students speaking to a virtual audience where they had 90 seconds to identify if they could body swap, if they could swap bodies, because that's the name of the organization with the software. If they could swap bodies with anybody for a day, who would it be? And they talked for 90 seconds about that. So this does not need subject-specific knowledge. A lot of academic colleagues have asked me that. Can we ask them about a particular time period? Can we ask them about a particular political party? Okay. I can't say too much, but something that we're developing is more aligned with the customization. But for now, this works very well for our students because it doesn't, their academic knowledge is not being tested. It's their ability to speak publicly that is most important here. So what was the impact of this then? So we've run this for 2 academic years. We've had 600 students in total go through this experience. 58% of students had not used VR before. It was their first experience. And about a third of students identified that there was a financial barrier to engaging in a virtual reality experience because of the cost of the headset and the license. So for them to be able to have this experience as part of their first year program feels great. We're sort of bridging the gap between that experience. Half of respondents felt confident in their public speaking skills at the start in the pre-survey, and that increased to 64% post-activity. This is just after 45 minutes, by the way. The students reporting low confidence decreased from 25%, a quarter of the group, down to 13%. So this activity not only helped the most confident speakers to be more confident, but also considerably helped the low confident speakers to develop more confidence in public speaking. 3/4 agreed that the experience equipped them with the necessary techniques for effective public speaking moving forward. And I love this statistic, 89% reported that virtual reality had enriched their learning experience. It was something very different for them, a different type of assessment. Now, I've talked about assessment here. As I mentioned earlier, it's on a pass-fail basis. So if students complete the activity, they get the 10%. I appreciate for first years, that is probably appropriate at the first year, because other colleagues in other areas, other departments, they perhaps attach attendance and participation to a percentage, 5 or 10%, to encourage participation. So I see this on the same sort of level as encouraging all those students to engage in this. If I was to replicate this in year 2, year 3 postgraduate, and so on, I would want some subject knowledge to be there. Okay, because we're going beyond just public speaking, and we expect more from our students at those higher levels as well. So some of the qualitative data, students really appreciated the non-judgmental virtual environment because it provided a really safe space for public speaking practice, which is very reminiscent of the talk that we heard yesterday about students feeling more confident with a ChatGPT tutor than their real tutor. They're able to challenge themselves without facing the anxiety associated with a real audience, which is great that we're able to provide that. They particularly like the ability to listen back to their recordings, and because they can see themselves as an avatar in the virtual reality world, they can see if they're going like this or going like this. Okay, they can see that. It's really hard to see that as a speaker, so we give them opportunity to observe their own body language as well. And I'm suddenly very aware of my own body language after I've said that. So it provides that one-to-one training, which was not possible from Dr. Rutledge. And actually, I should say, Andy, I wish he could be here, but he's been great to work with and collaborate with. But he's been a partner. It's been collaborative. It's been 50-50 from my team and his team, and it's been a great experience. The students praise the innovation, the fact that it's highly engaging, and it's an immersive experience as well. But I'd like to sort of focus, I mean, that's a summary of the themes, but I'd like to give you some student reflections, extracts. So one student said, to be honest, I had very little faith in myself before this semester. So this was a huge milestone for me. One of my biggest fears was sharing my work or thoughts in a seminar. So to be put in a position now where I'm sharing my research and ideas to the entire class is such an achievement for me. Which, as educators, like, there's nothing better to hear that from students. In fact, it's been so transformative, because when we have these ideas, we hope that this will be the outcome. When students reflect back and tell you that it is the outcome, you've achieved the outcome, it means so much more as educators to know that we've been able to do that. So finally, the last couple of slides here, in terms of transferability and development, I've talked about politics. So following the pilot in 23-24, the assessment has been since developed. So it felt in the first instance that students had this VR-based experience, and then it stopped. It was an hour, and then students didn't do much more with that. And it was effective, but it felt a bit short. So Andy has now developed this public speaking ladder, the 5-step public speaking ladder, where 3 of the activities are prescribed by Andy and 2 are self-selected by the student. So the first one, the VR experience, is a foundation. Based on the feedback, students can identify a professional development activity themselves. Next time, I'm going to ask a question in a seminar. The third step is students record an extract, a 2-minute extract from a famous public speaking sort of speech, and it's peer reviewed by the peers on the program. The fourth step is self-prescribed, and then finally, it's the beach ball. It's the throwing the ball into the audience and having students who stand up and communicate to the audience. So that's not been lost, but we've diversified and given texture and hopefully richness to that student experience as well. Am I okay for time?
You're okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
okay. Thank you. I do like to talk, so I just wanted to check. So in summary, whilst VR-based training is really common within healthcare and aviation, this is not new in the world, okay? But it feels new in this context. It feels innovative, and it is innovative in the fact that we're working with politics students to achieve this. And it is transferable to other disciplines. I love working in humanities and social sciences. I work with archaeologists. I work with future lawyers. I work with sociologists. I work with historians. It's very, very broad. And I see the transferability here as well. So one example could be we could use this type of technology. Oh, I think we've skipped. Oh, yeah, sorry. So we could use this type of technology to put a law student in a meeting with a simulated client, a legal client that they need to liaise with. before they transition into the clinical legal skills module, where they do speak with the client in real life. Archaeology students perhaps may engage in a public consultation of an archaeological dig that's taking place or proposed to take place on a religious site. Okay, thinking about the kind of fears and the kind of concerns that the public may have, and responding to those effectively. Thank you. Also, in terms of communications and media, that also sit in my faculty, it could be we replicate a press conference. So students have written a press release to deliver to the public. So this is very transferable. And as I mentioned, this is something that we are working in-house at the moment to further develop what we've worked on so far. And I hope to come back at a future conference and tell you what we've been doing. So just in summary then, engaging public speaking practice through virtual reality does not replace addressing a live audience. I can't stress that enough. I see this as a valuable intermediate step to help build confidence in students, to go outside their comfort zone and try something different, try something new, try something that they've been too scared or anxious or frustrated to do before. So we see this as that great foundational step in a non-judgmental, low-stakes environment. Positive impact has been clear and evident among both most confident and least confident students. One bit of feedback that I'd say has been a challenge is motion sickness. I get motion sickness. On the plane here, I took my Studer on the way to make sure I was okay, but we recognise that some students do experience motion sickness. So when you put a VR headset on, it can sometimes trigger that. So we offer a screen-based alternative, which is the same experience, just slightly less immersive, but you have the same activities that students complete. Also, in terms of accessibility, we work with academics to understand our student cohort in terms of learning support plans, any disabilities, anything that would hinder students from making the most or being able to engage fully with this experience. And we work with those students to ensure that it's suitable for them as well. So what I'd like to say for the final bit, the final note of my talk, is that I appreciate that some of you may not have access to virtual reality headsets or the software. What I would say, in the most broadest terms, I'd encourage you to think about, or continue thinking about, because you may have thought this already, of how you can use existing technology, existing software licenses, and institutional expertise within your institution to try to achieve what you want to achieve. I was speaking to colleagues yesterday at lunch from Kristianstad in Sweden, and we're talking about the fact that there's a big difference between collaboration across departments. Some departments work very well together and work closely together, others siloed and very separate and different. But that doesn't mean that we can't work. Sounds a bit fluffy, sounds a bit soft, this, but it doesn't mean that we can't work together to achieve impact for our students. And there might be colleagues, you might be the colleague who's got the expertise to offer another colleague, or there might be colleagues across your institutions and organisations that you can collaborate with to achieve a result like this for your students or the people who use your services. So that's everything from me from now. I've included my references here, so please do take a look. And I don't do this work on my own. I have included the names of my colleagues back in Liverpool who collaborated on this project as well. So thank you so much for your time. You've been great, and I'd welcome any questions that you've got as well.